Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And today we're going to tell you how we felt about The Dark Tower, a book series that I have not gotten around to reading yet, but that Eric is a big fan of. Eric, I had every intention of reading at least some of these before the movie came out.
I kept updating you on how long you had to read 2,000 pages.
On the release date, never happened. I was in the middle of some other things. I was reading other stuff. And then about 3 days ago, you were like, well, you're not going to have a chance to read that before the movie comes out.
You maybe, if you did nothing else, you probably could have read the first book.
It's going to be interesting as we're talking about this to decide whether or not it was a bad idea that I saw this before I read the books. But we'll have to talk about that. Okay. So this was a thing that I had certainly, hopes for, especially because I wanted you to enjoy it, because I know this is material that you like a lot.
Yeah,
my mom's also a big Stephen King and Dark Tower fan, and I was hoping this would be great for her. And seeing previews, I just didn't see how this wouldn't be the most generic thing in the world. And I thought maybe there was a chance that the movie would be better than that, but just the look and tone of it even, I couldn't get my mind around it. It just seemed really generic and almost like something filmed 20 years ago and put in a drawer.
Yeah.
And then we saw it, and, and then, like, you saw it, some reviews and things, and
reviews were bad.
You were like, I don't even know if we should go now, but Eric decided we should go ahead and go. So I went with Eric because he was still kind of curious. And,
well, and there's been a lot of interference, studio interference. Apparently there's a cut of this film that they screened in October to 3 separate audiences, and they all said, we have no idea what's happening. So they reshot and recut the movie into what we are looking at.
Well, I can't say that if that was the whole goal, then they succeeded at that. At the very least, I can tell you what's happening for the most part. I mean, there's some character motivation issues and just some basic logic problems, but as far as the just cookie cutter story, A, B to C, I know what's going on. But oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah. Anyway, well, we probably tipped
which means that there could have been a movie that would still get
a little bit already.
Which means there's a movie that still could have been ravaged by critics, but I would have liked.
Possibly.
That movie could be out in the ether.
Yeah. So it sounds like the Warcraft version of this movie exists. That's kind of what it sounds like. Well, Eric, how did you feel about finally for the first time, as far as I'm aware, an adaptation of The Dark Tower?
Unless you count the comics.
A film adaptation of The Dark Tower.
Am I flipping my sign?
Flip your sign, sir. That's the next step. Yes, indeed.
The sport's kind of self-indulgent, but I don't care. The audience fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed.
That's what made you feel like?
That's what made me feel like.
That the audience fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. Okay.
Okay. So that is the first line of the book. Well, except
I see.
It's the man in black fled.
We usually do a quick synopsis. We did not do that.
Okay. There's a boy named Jake. He has psychic powers and sees visions of this other world, this ominous man in black, and eventually a gunslinger who he thinks can help save the Dark Tower, which is a big dark tower, and
that if it falls down, there's darkness and fire,
and apparently monsters
everywhere.
Everywhere. The man in black wants to get get Jake to break his machine, or to go in his machine to break the Dark Tower. And
because he's like the most powerful of all the psychic kids,
and so Jake and Roland team up.
Because it's a Stephen King thing, so of course it's about a psychic kid.
And they wouldn't stop saying the word shine.
Yep, they were all over that.
And so Jake and Roland meet up, and Jake helps Roland overcome his vengeance, his drive for vengeance. You know what's weird? We do this a lot in stories about vengeance, where they still get their vengeance. They're like, look, you've moved past it, but I'll still let you murder the person that you're trying to...
That's true. We do that a lot.
And the day is saved.
Even Robin and Batman Forever kind of got that.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't the one that killed Two-Face, but he got to
dead.
stand there
Doesn't
and be
make
like,
him any less
I'm
dead.
getting my vengeance. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, so
So
what does your cryptic stolen board mean?
It's also in the movie, randomly for no reason. Did you notice that?
I didn't.
Okay, there's a point where we cut from one scene to the other, and there's a voiceover of a woman that just says, "The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed." And I was like, Well, that was there for no reason. This is a movie that... It's exactly the movie I would think would come out in the 80s or 90s based on this material, which couldn't have happened because the book series wasn't ended, but, you know, theoretically. It's...
With this ending, did that matter?
Well, they pull stuff from the later books.
Okay. Oh, I see. So just...
I mean, literally, timeline-wise...
But it still kind of feels like you could have about made this movie.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying.
It's about as streamlined and stripped down and genericified as this material could be. And it's... like, it's really... It doesn't trust its audience at all.
Yeah.
Which, given that they made a cut of this movie that the audience couldn't understand it at all, apparently, maybe that's fair.
Yeah, but it sounds like they just overcompensated and went 180 degrees the other way.
But at the same time, they're putting in all of this generic sci-fi movie garbage that isn't in the books.
Really?
All that portal stuff, the lab, the minions, none of that exists.
Oh, really?
No, I mean, there are portals, those minions exist, but like, the way it's set, it's not technology based.
Yeah.
I
wondered about that.
It would be like doing Harry Potter like Thor. Like if you adapted Harry Potter and did it like Thor, like it's really weird. And I was like, okay, but this makes it feel more like a generic sci-fi movie that normal audiences are going to go into and like turn their brain off and not like.
Yeah.
It felt like it was trying its hardest to like get the audience.
It has that in common with Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't hate it as much as I hated Ghost in the Shell. It's not as offensive to me as Ghost in the Shell is.
It also has different problems.
Sure,
but I just mean in kind of genericifying the material and making it less interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the Dark Tower is supposed to be about, but I thought thematically most of it was just kind of ethereal platitudes.
Yeah, it's more complicated than that. It's also shot really...
And I figured that would be probably your whole review, is, well, the original material is more complicated than this. And yeah, I get it, it's a movie, and the book is always better, but this just... It felt like I've been here and done this in so many other things. I didn't know what was special about this world. There was nothing that would make me want to go back here.
And you don't really get to see the world that much, except for the evil minion lair.
Yeah, there's nothing that interesting about the world he's from.
Yeah.
That Idris Elba's from.
Yeah, you don't really get to see Midworld, and Midworld's a fun place. There's an evil train that, if you get on him, he will keep driving until you die, unless you can come up with a riddle that can stump him.
See, why would you leave stuff like that out? I mean, like Stephen King is, what you call it, an imaginative person?
Yeah.
And, this movie just seems so scared of that kind of material.
Yeah, and there's, like, and it's weird because there's a lot of references to different King stuff that makes it feel like the kind of thing you would do on a project you're passionate about. There are a lot of winks and nods to different things. They would not stop saying shine,
right?
Which is brought up in the book as in the books as one of many different terms for that ability.
Really?
They don't just keep saying shine.
I wondered
different
about that
places
too.
call it different things.
Because I know some of his mythology goes in and out of different books, even if they're not technically connected to each other. And I wondered if that was just the term in that book for that. But I imagine people, of the 15 people that go and see this movie, because I expect this to bomb real bad, and not just because I didn't think it was great, but I haven't heard people talking about it. I don't think it's had the best advertising campaign, although now that I've seen the movie, I can see how this is a hard thing to sell. I can see why the studio's not really behind it. The way that they probably, wish they were, but, and that the people making the film probably wish they were. But anyway, I don't know, I imagine that some people who are into other Stephen King things might see this movie and be like, oh, this is the thing that's supposed to, like, rope all of the books together.
And it is in the books. It also did this thing that's really hard to explain without having read the books, but this was sold as a sequel to the books. And
was it in some way?
Theoretically, except the two big things that I would think would make it a sequel. It's very Wheel of Timey. It's about.
I mean, you say it's a sequel. I don't know where that's ever been said. All I've gotten that from is you.
It's from Stephen King and from the filmmakers.
Okay.
It's really hard to explain.
But you'd think you'd find some way to rope that into the advertising.
Yeah.
At least something viral.
But
you remember, we've had this conversation where I said that this should have had massive viral marketing.
I agree.
This seems like the most obvious thing that you sell mostly underground and on the internet and with weird little viral videos and things, and we didn't do any of that I know about.
There's major things that I feel like need to be in this, if it is in fact the sequel that it purports to be. Well, one major thing in particular that isn't here or doesn't seem to be here, and so it doesn't... Calling it a sequel almost just negates any criticism of, well, you didn't do it like the books because, it's not the books, it's a sequel. So it's going to happen differently. But it just... I mean, the PG-13 rating was really a problem on this movie. Like, this movie had no teeth. And sometimes it felt like it was trying to be scary.
That's a great way to put it.
And what's really disappointing...
I'll touch back on that later, because that's my one thing.
Okay. What's really disappointing is how many... Like, there are bits where I'm like, oh, that's, like, exactly from the book. Or, like, because the books have illustrations. The Dark Tower books have a couple of illustrations. Each book has a different artist, and they do a couple of illustrations. When
are they supposed to be, like, pictures of the dreams in his head, or are
no,
they just pictures?
They're just pictures. For some reason, the Dark Tower books have pictures. I don't know why.
Interesting. Okay.
But the house coming alive is a thing that happens in the books, and it's drawn similar to how it's done here. It's kind of cool. And there's a couple of things like that. My big... like, if I'm going to do a best thing, worst thing, I know you're not going to agree with me, but I loved Matthew McConaughey. I thought he was fantastic.
I'm not going to disagree that I just didn't think they gave him enough to do. I mean, he was right casting. He was clearly having as much of a good time as he could with this material, but even he seemed bored to me at points. I thought he was too much like the villain in Ghost Rider.
Oh, interesting. He's written a little off, and he's a little underwritten, but the performance that he was giving is exactly the performance I would have wanted in a good Dark Tower movie. He was spot on. Of everything in this movie,
yeah, I can imagine suddenly liking him with the right material, with the right dialogue, and with a villain plot that didn't seem like the one I've seen 50,000 times, and if he didn't seem like he could win the day by snapping his fingers, but just doesn't because the movie has to happen. He's one of those villains. There's no reason he should lose.
Yeah,
it drove me insane. He's one of the. There's no reason. Look, I realize that that for whatever reason, and I don't think we're given much of an explanation, or are we, that Idris Elba is able to is able to deflect his magic. We like his abilities. He just kind of is able to do that, but like he's not able to stop him from like using his telekinesis to throw stuff on him. So there's still no reason the guy should lose. It's like, okay, so he can't tell you to die and you die, but beyond that, all of his other powers still work on you.
If or when you ever actually get around to reading the books, I think if you picture McConaughey's performance for the Man in Black, like I think it fits totally. Like I
like how nonchalant he is, and how there was definitely a little bit of a Purple Man thing going on, except more mustache twirly, and he's less interesting because he doesn't come from a place because he is supposed to be pure evil, and I don't have a problem with that.
And he is that in the book, like he is the most purest of.
But there are so many places where I'm like, I get it, he's evil.
Now. Yeah. Which you said a couple of times.
I couldn't help myself, and I don't even mean with things he's doing necessarily. Well, sometimes things he's saying. Well, I get it. Yeah.
Hey.
Okay. He's evil.
Here's the one thing I will say.
Yeah. Sorry.
If this movie came out in the 80s... I'm
making fun of your best thing. I apologize.
No. If this movie came out in the 80s, and it was a movie like nobody talks about, and I would love this movie.
Yeah.
I would love this movie if it came out in 1987, and just like it was a maybe somewhat fondly remembered movie, forgotten movie. Like, I can't divorce myself from the material. I have the problem a lot. I'm very much a purist. I think that I could potentially, maybe not today in this day and age, but if this movie was released 20 years ago, and I don't know the source material at all, I could see myself enjoying this movie. If somebody liked this movie, I can kind of get that to some degree. It's very weird.
Me too.
I could see people liking it. And I wouldn't have a problem like if somebody was like, yeah, I like the Dark Tower, I wouldn't be like, well, what's wrong with you? Like, this seems like a movie that I could like, maybe through a certain lens, and if it was older, like released in the modern day, I don't know if I could.
It doesn't make sense 5 minutes ago, yeah.
But like if this is a movie from the late 80s, early 90s, I could find myself finding this and being like, this is a really crazy like movie, like it's so much fun, and like there's a lot of movies like that.
It just seems like it's not aware of any other movie that is like this.
Yeah.
And yet at the same and it's holding your hand that way, but then at the same time sometimes it feels too aware of that, where it also like rushes certain things too much because we've been there before.
Yeah. So I'm not feeling it. And Idris Elba was fine.
Once again, I think he was the right casting.
No, yeah, he was good as Roland, I guess. Like, I didn't feel like he got much to do. Here's the thing. In the world that we live in...
Everybody's one note, right? I mean, there's no character that comes alive, really.
In the world that... Although, I thought Jake was good. I could see him having some kind of a career.
Again, that actor is fine. I thought he was just serviceable, though. There were places where I thought he had some massive growing up to do as an actor.
This is a... Like, releasing this
There was
movie,
at least one moment of surprise where I was, like, acting. Most of the rest of it, I thought he was like... And with what they had to work with, he and Idris Elba maybe had some chemistry.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to the end, and I was like, oh, I really want more adventures with these two. Like...
Yeah. This is... Releasing this movie when it comes out, there is no excuse for not just giving me mid-world... Like... We've done that. We always do this with movies, like,
and the thing doesn't get rolling till we get to Earth.
Yeah, but like, the book is from Roland's point of view. Like, you start with Roland in Midworld, and it's almost a twist in the second book when you realize he's shown up here in 1980.
Oh.
It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's not about our... I mean, it is about our world, and we go there quite often, kind of, in the later books, but... It doesn't start there. Like, this is such a 1997 movie move of, like, we have to have the kid who is our eyes into this world because the audience isn't going to begin to be able to deal with this world unless they have a representation.
How many of those things
We're post-Guardians of the Galaxy. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't get it. And again, I haven't read the book, so I don't know how involved that kid is from the start, but it...
He's in the first book, and he's in some of the later books. So, I mean, he is important.
But is he the protagonist?
No.
Because in this film, he is the protagonist.
He is not the protagonist.
I mean, Roland has kind of a superficial character arc, but he's...
Roland is the protagonist, and Jake is part of his quartet.
And I got the sense from the trailers that this was the way they were going to play it.
Yeah.
It is very never-ending story in that way.
And that's the thing. One of the things,
he's basically Atreyu.
One of the things you said about the trailers was that it looks like it's based on a young adult book series. That's because they made a movie that feels like it was based on a young adult book series.
So you just hit on my one thing.
Yeah, okay.
That's where I was going to go.
Sorry.
No, that's totally fine.
I'm not feeling that you do your book.
Yeah, okay, so this movie made me feel like reading books instead of watching movies. I mean, the whole way through this, I was like... I mean, I'm sorry, it's not like everything about this is terrible, but I spent most of this movie going, I just want to sit down and read these now. Like, and not because there was anything about this that was compelling me to go read the book. It's that I've been reading a lot of Stephen King lately, and this feels like an insult to his... generally to his caliber of storytelling, and I know that happens a lot with Stephen King films, but just knowing some things I know from stuff you've told me, like it was a long time before he even allowed this to get made, and stuff like that.
Yeah, he was real. This was the one adaptation he was really precious about, and I don't know how we got here, other than when he finally sold the rights to someone. Like, he didn't have control over it, and they just kept changing hands. But I've been told, and I haven't looked into this,
that he really likes it.
Well, not just that, he had scene veto power.
That's so weird.
Like, he could say that scene, like, get rid of it.
Yeah, but we also know from, and maybe he's, I mean, I like to think that he could have grown. I don't know, and I don't know just how involved he was, but we've seen from things like the Shining miniseries in the late 90s that he doesn't adapt his own work well, and maybe he's not great at screenwriting versus prose. So, grain of salt with that, I'd say.
Sure.
But anyway,
I mean, he didn't write this movie though.
But I spent, yeah, but I mean, if he was involved and to the point where he could say that scene's not, shouldn't go there. I mean, like, he had massive pacing problems in his own work in adapting something from page to screen. So I don't know how great he would necessarily be at even knowing what should stay and what should go. I don't know that he's an adaptation guy. But anyway, I don't know. There wasn't anything about this that compelled me to go look at the books beyond just basic premise and my going. I really had this, where throughout this I kept thinking, I bet Stephen King on this premise would be great, because it's so formulaic and it's so cookie cutter and it's so been there, done that in every scene. And I was like, well, I'm sure this isn't what these books are like. And as you alluded to a minute ago, I thought those trailers looked a little young adult book series. That was all I could think about the entire time I was watching this.
It felt so young adulty.
It's not for adults. There's one line that felt like
you might be able to take Jason to see this. Not saying you shouldn't, but
because I don't know that you would enjoy it, but you could, and that's weird, right? I just
especially having read the books, so
just from what little I know about those books. But yeah, it reads like a scholastic young adult book series thing. It reads like dark Harry Potter's, and the Harry Potter already gets dark. But I'm just saying, yeah.
Not Dark Tower gets dark.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. But for a kids thing and for a thing you're supposed to grow up with. But but this, it felt like if this came out in the late 90s and it was meant to be a horror thriller for children, it's kind of edgy. But only for that audience, and kind of only then. Like I said, it's like somebody had this sitting in a drawer for 20 years. It's really bizarre that this is what they made.
Yeah. Well, and the way that they treat Roland is so how they would have done it in the late 80s, early 90s for a children's film. It's like Warriors of Virtue or something like that, where it's like the cool character can't be the kid, so we're going to have like a really cool character that the kid's going to partner up with and do all the cool stuff.
Having said that, if it was a PG-13 version of this material, because you know the material and you're a purist and stuff, and I'm just talking as somebody who just saw this and doesn't know that material, I could see how this could be appealing and to a wider audience, even being a PG-13 that's meant more for families, where it's treated like a Jumanji or something. Sure. Where it's treated as a thriller thing, and there are bits that are kind of scary, but it's more or less wholesome, and it has a good message at the end. I could see that, but it's also generic, and there's not enough personality and life breathed into any of these characters. And again, I just feel like I've been here and done this so much. So I'm asking myself who this is for. There's a lot of that, and
I have no idea.
And then I'm asking myself, am I just not the right audience for it? And then I'm thinking, it feels like it's for like 12 or 13-year-olds, but maybe not even of this particular generation of 12 or 13-year-olds. So like, I can't figure out who it's for. But then
also if they like this, they shouldn't go read the books.
Yeah, but then fair. But then also, it would just be so strange if you intentionally made this movie for a Goosebumps audience, and that's or I should say more. I guess the more older adult book series. But I mean, like, this is for like Maze Runner kids or something.
Yeah, that's exactly that's the movie they made.
That's the feel I get, but I like that you said that. And then like some of those kids wouldn't be ready for Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a couple of story questions?
Sure.
A couple of really basic. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Because you brought up like this material with Stephen King, and I just want to real quick give a real subtle example of the differences between how this movie deals with things and how the books do. So he's like cartoon eyes wide with all the bullets, right? Like, that's the big thing coming to Earth is, oh my god, there's so many guns and bullets.
It feels like The Matrix and Blade just came out. I mean, that's what it feels like. It's not aware of anything that was built on those things.
In the book, the big thing he's impressed by what we have is paper. Paper's real scarce, and seeing people just throw paper away is like, why would you do? Like, it's
well, and
so.
See, that's interesting because you can actually look at the societal differences. But he and I'm sure we get to live with that society for any amount of time in the books. But like here, all of the places, and there were bits that were kind of fun and more. Like felt like we were breathing life in things relative to what we had before, but then I would get 5 seconds away from it and I'd be like, in any other movie, that's as lame as what I have been watching through the rest of it. There are a couple places where we do that obligatory space alien finally coming to Earth, seeing things he doesn't recognize and making jokes about it, and relative to what we've had before, they're funny, but they're not funny.
Yeah, there's one I laughed at and then immediately felt bad for laughing.
Yeah, when you did that, I was like, yeah, relative to the rest of the movie. I can't remember what exactly it was.
I don't remember. It was some real generic joke. I was like,
Yeah. Oh, you know, one of it was, and I don't want to give too much away in case people want to see this, but the hot dog thing. Well, you shouldn't be laughing at that. That is the most obvious place to go. And you were like, ha ha, and then we both looked at it. That's not good. This is, but I have to say this. This is one of the most thoroughly riffable films I've seen in a long time.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, they just kept coming to me. I wanted to riff track this so hard all the way through it, and so I mean, it's got that going for it.
Okay, so you were gonna ask story questions.
Yeah, really basic, simple things like, in the Dark Tower, is the Dark Tower just a boring MacGuffin that we never visit or do anything with?
I mean, for 6 books.
Really?
Well, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Because, see, in this, he's trying to kill Walter O'Dim. In the books, he's trying to get to the Dark Tower. It is a journey to it.
Now, I will say this. That was the thing I sort of liked, really. His name was Walter. Like, that was kind of funny.
But, yeah, it's a journey to the Dark Tower. So, yeah, the Dark Tower's not... But the Dark Tower is also a rose that's in our world, and so...
Oh.
It's...
Okay.
It's more complicated.
Yeah, we just weren't creative with the interdimensional stuff at all.
And they remembered that for, like, 6 seconds when the movie...
Really?
Yeah, okay. So the... Because roses are really important in the Dark Tower, and they're all over the Dark Tower. They, at the beginning of the movie, we go through, like, the company logos... And then we see one that just looks like a normal company logo, but it's not. It's actually not a real company. It says Tet. It's like Tet Company or Tet Corporation. And there's a rose in the symbol, and there's a turtle. That's a reference to the books. It's not a real company. It's also not a reference to the movie they made. I was like, thanks. I get it.
Which means that material was probably there in that other con.
Maybe.
And they got rid of it. Would be my guess.
Okay, so yes, the Dark Tower is. It is what he's going to. So it doesn't actually play that big of a role.
Okay.
The last pages of the book are him finally entering the tower.
Is the Oath a book thing?
Yes.
Is it what it is in the movie?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Because let me ask you this then. Also, let me be clear. I'm not saying, because again I haven't even read them, but as always, we're not saying it's bad because it's not like the books. It's not interesting, and I would assume its material has something that would like grab on that I could grab onto that would make me want to keep watching it. With in the books.
In fact, almost everything that someone says that is a phrase you've never heard comes from the books. The long days and pleasant nights. The thank you, sigh. There's a couple of things like that. That's all like Dark Tower speak that he created.
But that really makes it feel like this is kind of just supplemental material, like with a lot of book adaptations. Where and again that's so annoying. Where like it's kind of only for the people that have read it, but it's also dumbing it down and watering it down, so they're not having any fun either. And I don't know. That's real unfortunate. I had another thing. I can't remember what it was. I asked you about the Oath thing. Oh, are any of the books the main crux or the theme like a father-son thing?
Yes.
They would have to, because that Oath, we're just like we say it over and over again, and we're just smacking people in the face constantly with "Forgotten the Face of Your Father," and this is not a father-son story.
"Forgotten the Face of the Father" is a mantra.
I mean, I guess he becomes sort of a fatherly role model for the kid who has lost his father, but again, it's not very interesting. It's kind of superficial.
"Forgotten the Face of Your Father" is a mantra throughout the entire book series. The letter that Stephen King apparently wrote to the director after seeing the final cut of the film ended with, "You have not forgotten the face of your father."
Wow.
Yeah, "Forgotten the Face of Your Father" is something I really like. But that is... And when you get to the...
I just wanted more depth with that as an idea.
When you get to book 4, the majority of book 4 is a flashback. It is a young Roland story. It's my favorite of the books. It is him going on a quest to atone for essentially the shame of his father.
Okay.
His father is shamed by Walter, and it's a whole thing. But yeah, no, the fathers are very important.
Is this version of this world...
Josh!
I did not care for this movie. Is this... And again, like I was just kind of bored.
Midworld needs to be more stylized. Like when we got to Midworld, I was like, that looks like out there. Like, it shouldn't look like this should look like a
there's
really
some
cool Western
photography in that, but it's not. You're right. It's not stylized enough.
It just, I don't know.
Again, I think the casting is
the
decent.
atmosphere is way off.
I think so too. I think some of the casting is decent. I think the like I said, Alba. There's a real intensity to his performance, but there's nothing backing him up. He doesn't have a foundation for that intensity. There's some okay cinematography here and there, but I don't feel like we have the most competent director in the world.
No.
There's some action toward the end that is laughable. During your climax that I just could not even believe was, and I realize this is not a real expensive movie, but it bordered, but with a like $60 million budget or whatever it has, it borders too often on like a Sci-Fi Channel movie.
You were going to ask something about the world.
Kind of unfortunate, but I was just going to say, is this version at all a place you would want to go back and visit, or would this be a thing we would have to completely redo from the ground up? I don't know why you wouldn't go to television. I don't know why you wouldn't go miniseries with this.
Yeah, well, and it was supposed to be.
And again, you can still do some of that action better on a TV budget, even.
Netflix could all of the Marvel shows except for Iron Fist look better than this.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because the intention was that there was going to be a trilogy of movies, and in between those movies was going to be a TV miniseries on HBO, which is weird. Why would you go HBO if you're making PG-13 films? But
what I don't understand, well, maybe that material would be rougher for whatever reason. Who knows?
But it's weird to treat like parts of it like, well, this stuff we're gonna fully adapt the way it is, and this stuff we're gonna water down for families.
That seems like what they did. This doesn't feel like a thing, curiously, that needs a sequel, is asking for a sequel, has sequel bait at the end. It's
as sequel baity as every movie we watched as a kid.
Yeah, but that's it. It's only sequel baity in the sense that your main characters continue on at the end. That's it. I mean, like, there's not even a sense of a looming threat of any kind. It's just, and then they keep going.
Mentions of the Crimson King, but nothing, not in any way that anyone but me would know that that's a thing.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if you're not familiar with that material, when you get to the end of this movie, it
feels wrapped.
The most standard kind of third act, and of these kind of big sci-fi epic things, and even superhero things. And then why would you have another one?
Yeah, strangely, it doesn't feel like a movie that's asking for a sequel.
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
It's really weird.
Which I would love to applaud it for, except there's a lot more material with that stuff, and they meant for this to be a springboard for even other media, so that's really strange.
Yeah, this is the most...
But also what they left us with is, again, what they gave us is so cookie-cutter and formulaic in the first place that it feels like they just didn't trust it, so they took... I don't even want to say they took multiple films worth of material. It just feels like they cherry-picked some stuff and threw it in one movie, and they were like, yeah, that's good. And
this is the most creatively conservative film I've ever seen that was also intended to be, like, experimental in how this narrative was going to be told across different mediums.
Yeah.
Why would you make a movie that's this, like, white bread if you're like... Yeah, and we're gonna tie it into like TV shows, and like it's all gonna be part of this thing. Like not even like Marvel, like it's a narrative across 3 movies and 2 TV shows, and
and then maybe ties into its own books that it's based on. That could be really cool. I like that kind of really creative metafiction.
Yeah.
I was interested and excited about that aspect of it, and then it's not there.
It's not there at all. I mean, yeah, it's not there at all.
So anyway, yeah, disappointing, although not entirely surprising based on what they sold.
But it's not as bad as it could have been.
No,
it's coherent.
It is. It's not the most. It's not the most awful thing I've ever sat through, but I was looking at my watch. I didn't want to be there.
Given a lot of movies that we have seen over the past year or two, it's hard for me to be super critical of a movie that has a beginning, middle, and end, and at least has a character arc I could describe to you.
But you can't say that these characters are always acting like people.
No, not at all.
And you can't say that they're not sometimes just mouthpieces for ideas.
But this is what used to traditionally pass as a not very good or mediocre film.
That's fair.
We have changed that line and dropped it, and so now I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, but it's not these other movies. I don't...
So, yeah, I'd like to partake in the actual material at some point. That'd be great.
You should. It's really good. You gotta work through that first book, but otherwise it's really good.
That was my big takeaway. Anyway, well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. Sure appreciate it, and we will see you again with more videos starting on Monday here on Geekvolution. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
See you, folks.